What's up, everybody? We are back here for another episode of the Level Up Your Life podcast, and I'm your host, as always, Billy Anderson, and we've got our special guest, Sondra Yates from Team Yates Mortgages here in Modesto, California. Excited to have you on, Sondra. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for jumping on. I know we've been planning this for a while, and I think you might be the only person that can match my energy. So everybody buckle down and get ready for listening fast, because we're going to bring some good energy. But like I mentioned before we got on the podcast, this podcast is all about leveling up your life and sharing your stories, your journey, and sharing it to our community and helping them find relatability, find ways to think about things differently, or to find, just learning lessons that you've experienced, right? I think that the people that we have on here have gone through a lot. And if we can help one person out there avoid one of the mistakes or approach something that's happening in their life differently, that's the goal. So excited to have you here. Like I said, you've got a great outlook on life. And so I'm excited to have you on here. I think it's going to be great. So first and foremost, let's introduce you to everybody. Share just quickly about who you are and what is it that you do.
Yeah, for sure. So Sondra Yates, our company's cross-country mortgage. I have my own small team. So our overall goal, right, is to just duplicate an awesome client experience so we can make the home buying process or refinance just one that's super memorable, that reaches out to family, friends, and just a whole community, right? Because it's such a big deal having to do with people's net worth when they can actually afford their own home.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I mean, huge deal. And it's a very rewarding thing, especially, if you've never owned a home to finally get that. And the experience isn't always great. So the fact that your focus is that, it's so valuable. It's funny, and we're going to jump right into some stuff, but I think it's funny when people approach me about real estate or mortgage, they're like, well, how do I offer something? What makes me different when I have the same rates that everybody else? And it's those things. It's that giving that extra effort on the customer experience, those types of things that really do set you apart. And anybody that I know that either knows you or has worked with you, they have nothing but amazing things to say about you. And it is about the experience. Man, they were there for me the whole way through. They explained things. Anytime I had a question, they were there. They stayed on top of it. And it was everybody, obviously Don just went through this process, and he just had nothing but amazing things to say. And I love hearing that, because you guys definitely pride yourself on that customer experience.
Oh, we totally do. I mean, I think the best thing I ever heard on the topic was Sarah Blakely said, I know that, a lot of us offer the same services, but I dare you to find somebody that's going to outcare me.
Yeah, that's great.
Outcare the experience. I mean, which is really intense sometimes, right? Because you have this level that you need it to be done at every single time, but it's because we care so hard about the client and the process. So we absolutely there's nothing in this whole world I would rather do than what I do every single day.
I love that. One, you want to have that, but then just the experience that you give to your customers is great. And I think it's so funny. Like, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine last night, and he was telling me about the experience with the airlines. So we'll keep the name blank, but all of them are pretty much like this now. Yeah. And he's like, they're literally like, oh, well, no, it's that person's fault or that company's fault. Well, but I have a ticket through you. No, it's their fault. And then he calls the other company and no, it's their fault. And we're just talking at a certain level, companies just say, screw off. We don't even care about the experience you have anymore. You're going to work with us. Yeah. And I think that's the unique thing about a small business, is that we still have that care. And so if you're a customer out there, whether it be looking for a mortgage or in any industry, it's like supporting the small business is going to be the people that actually care about you, because the bigger companies, they don't give a damn. And they don't, 100%. You're just another number. Yep. And they could care less about your money. Yep. And because you're a small drop in the hat, know? And so it's what that makes you so much more unique than, the Redfins or all these other companies that are big conglomerates that you're just another application on there and they don't care about you. So that's awesome that you have that.
And if it doesn't work out, okay, they don't have to meet you in the grocery store. No. So we always that.
That's a good point.
I love the concept of it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility.
Yes.
So whether that's personally or professionally, a lot of us have had a lot of struggles and we wouldn't have necessarily chosen the path, but it's our responsibility to pick the pieces back up and do something with it, right? I love that. I'm not waiting for somebody to come save me.
Yeah.
Hasn't worked so far, right? So
Ain't
you
nobody
gotta just
coming.
Figure it out. So, and you want that to be your lasting impression with people you interact with, whether it's personally or professionally, just who you are, you know? So I hope that that's what people get. And yes, it doesn't always mean the lowest this or the cheapest that, but we all know sometimes what you pay is what you get in terms of the service. And so, we like to, really believe that we offer the whole package.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's take it back a little bit, because normally we jump a little bit more into your story, but I had to piggyback on that. So let's go back. Where are you from originally? Are you from the Valley? And then let's get into like how you ended up getting into mortgages, maybe other careers that you had prior to getting in the mortgage space.
Yeah, I was actually born in the Bay Area, and I moved to Modesto on my 13th birthday, and my birthday's in September, y'all. It was 115 degrees. I was like, where are we moving? So I was not thrilled about the process. And I actually, out of high school, went to just a small little community college to try to get just a job to work in an office with the intention of going back to school. And it was a mortgage company that I got a job at. And I will just say, sometimes you just have to be present. And so I had no experience, and somebody took a chance on me. I mean, I had like 3 outfits that I basically had to rotate and make it look like it was different outfits. You know what I mean? To show up in an office environment. And that was the start of it for me, that I was able to just work all the way through every job in the mortgage industry. I've literally been doing it for more years, half my life, essentially more than half my life. And I absolutely just knew that there was something in that was going to be different. Every day was different. Every customer interaction was different. So there actually is no other job other than, fast food in high school. Yeah. You got to buy a car.
We all had one of those jobs, right?
Yeah. And then you knew sometimes the lesson is what you don't want to do. So what I tell my kids, like, you got to do the stuff that's a little, that's not going to be it.
Yeah. That's definitely my motivation to never go back that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So were you in the mortgage space during 2008 and during,
all of it. So that transition actually, so I worked my way up to management and then an underwriting operations manager. And during the crash, I was transitioning between, I really think I could do the loans that are coming across my desk a little bit better, right? But I could also see the crash was coming. So I took a chance on that too. And I gave up my really decent salaried job, paid for a business coach when I had no income coming in because I knew I needed a system, and started originating loans. And that was a time where, price points were low, loans were hard. It was just this very, very different market. So when people ask me relative to times like today versus then, it's such a perspective, because this is just the time where we're going to hone our skills and get better and sharper and choose to come in with a good attitude every day, right? So those markets where, it's a little bit easier, I feel like that can also make you a little soft.
Yes.
And those of us that have gone on the ups and downs, like, you can put in perspective.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that you bring up the sharpening your tools, because there are a lot of people that, like I told you, like I wanted to highlight people that have great perspectives on all the craziness that's going on, whether they're killing it or not.
Yeah.
Just having a great perspective and being able to think about these times, not as challenging times, but as times that we can refine our craft and become better, so that when things get back to really good, you're killing it even more.
Yeah.
And there are unfortunately a lot of people that they get scared. And I mean, I understand it. I remember 2008, and I remember a Friday afternoon, they pulled us all into my work, and I worked for the city government at the time. And they're like, we're furloughing you guys. And I was like, cool. So I get like some time off. And then you get your check and you're like, and I lost some money. And it's a very scary moment. And I remember back then being very emotional because I just didn't know. And I was like, oh my gosh, the world's ending. And you feel like you got like a year left and it's all imploding. Like the world's going to explode. And it's scary. But then, hindsight going into even COVID, when we were going into lockdowns, where we didn't know what was going to happen. We genuinely, outside of just the economy, we didn't know about day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And in those moments, we had employees that were scared and was like, all right, guys, we're going to be good. Because what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on these different items, and we're going to get better, so that when things get back, we're going to be even more dialed in. And so I love that you have that outlook, because that's really the way it has to be.
It does.
The challenging times lead to the best of times.
Yeah.
But if we don't take advantage of that challenging time, we won't become better.
Totally. And even those of us that feel like we practice gratitude every day, there are times when it's a little bit, less challenging. We get kind of used to it, and you can get a little bit numbed on how blessed you are, right? And so sometimes you have to be removed from situations or opportunity to really appreciate what you had. And I feel like you take that gratitude back into the next season too.
Yeah.
So that, I just feel like the whole mindset shift of that. And during COVID, you bring that up. I was working for a smaller a mortgage company at the time, and I had to make the decision pretty quick to pivot, because smaller companies almost overnight lost some loan products that were really critical.
Wow.
And it was the first time in my whole career where I found myself with loans to do that suddenly they had no place to be sold to if I closed them.
Wow.
And there may have been some tears, okay? But I don't cry for that long. But sometimes, a little bit.
Yeah. And
I had to do really quick research, really quickly find a national company with a bigger footprint that I felt like was really solid. And, I'm a believer. So whatever you believe in, the universe, God, whatever you believe in, I always believe if you let something go and you were supposed to, you get it back tenfold. And that's exactly what happened to our business. So after I left that and nobody knew what COVID was going to do to the mortgage industry, it was times and a half better than the best year I ever had. Wow. And then the next year was 2.5 times better than that. So it was also like an affirmation of, we all have been in situations where we hold on to things because it's good, but maybe it's not best. And you're afraid to get the best because what if you leave the good and you get the bad? Ooh, right?
Yeah, very much so.
And so you stay in this plateau, I feel like, because you're like, big fish, small pond, I don't have anything to lose, and I'm comfy right here. But I just decided I had to be comfortable being a little uncomfortable, like this today, right? I'll tell you, I'm like, what is he going to ask me? I don't know. I like to think I can talk. What if I run out of answers, But it's just that mentality of just really always seeking best and not settling for where you're at without being, ungrateful. Be grateful for what you have, but maybe just always be trying to your point, level up that next. What does that next look like, right? So we really try to practice that.
And I love, you mentioned something earlier about being present. And I think as entrepreneurs or business owners or even individuals in life, in those challenging times, it's easy to not be present in the moment and be stuck back here. Oh, I wish it was like that time, or I wish it was like this. But having that presence, and I like to say keeping your head up and your eyes open, but it really is about being present in the moment and going, what is the best thing to do? Yeah. And often we get romantic about the past or emotional about the past in any way, and that can prevent us from being present in the moment to make the right decisions. And that was obviously a big moment. And if you hadn't been present, where would you be at? You would have had a great run, but would it have been the run that you have, and would you have the support and everything that you
it would
now
not
have
been. It would not be the same place. And I feel like we do that too. When we look back, we only really remember the really highlight parts of it. And somehow we dismiss and forget all the struggle in it, but we just want the highlight part back, right? Yeah. And so that's funny you say present, because that was my word for 2021. The word present in a lot of ways, right? Being present in conversation, being present at home, being wherever you are, just really taking those moments in. Because in the day that we live in now, and you're a grinder like I'm a grinder, sometimes you have to literally make yourself stop and be like, okay, my timer just went off. Find 3 things to be grateful for. Yeah. And you're like, the flower outside, and you're really trying to do the exercise. But it's just about mindfulness, because if not, you just get, so consumed. So it's sometimes you have to, slow down to speed up, right? Because it just kind of resets your focus. And so, a lot of it, I know a lot of people during COVID super struggled, super financial changes. I mean, some industries about wiped out, right? So I am totally not minimizing any of that. But at some point, you have to pick up the pieces and choose what it's going to look like. And it might be a new career. It might be re-educating yourself. I think the best way if you want to change in your life is, what are you bringing to the table to make yourself more valuable in the marketplace? Not a popular thing when I say that to my kids, but, because there's this little handout mentality sometimes. And it's no, nobody's going to do that for you. You have to be a little bit better to get the job that has better working hours, as an example, is my combo with my 22-year-old, because it's we don't just get, nobody's handing anything to us. So.
Well, you mentioned earlier, responsibility. You have to take that responsibility. And responsibility, and I've had conversations with different employees here and in the past. It's responsibility doesn't mean that it's your fault. Yeah. You're just saying, hey, I'm going to own this and I'm going to figure this out. Yeah. But if you don't, and it's unfortunately, like you mentioned, people did lose their businesses and industries were really impacted. But it's okay, are we going to blame the government? Are we okay, the government's going to be the government. They ain't going to give you nothing, Or even people that their business was already struggling. They got the PPP or some of these loans, and then they didn't take responsibility. And they're like, well, I got money. Yeah. And then now the economy's hurting, and they're in a worse situation than they were during COVID. Yeah. because now they owe money. And it's like they just kind of got the handout and didn't go, okay, what do we really need to do with this?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we have the government handout. The government took care of us. They'll keep taking. And it's very unfortunate. And it is the hard part about entrepreneurship. And I think it's unfortunately not talked about on social media. We see the nice cars, we see the fun things, like you just got back from Mexico, or even just the flexibility of you being able to go do something in the middle of the day. Somebody that has a job would be like, lucky you.
Yeah.
Like I remember people used to tell me that, like when I'd be at the bank, I'd be like, oh yeah, today's my day off and it's Friday. And they're like, lucky you. I was like, I work Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
This is my one day off. So like, no, it's not lucky me, but it's like people will look at things and go, oh, entrepreneurship is this rainbows and butterflies, but it's like, no, it's about taking responsibility in those tough times, typically in moments that you don't want to take responsibility. You got to take responsibility the most as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And risk reward, right? And so like if you want to guarantee, it's not for you.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes to the point of like the good versus best, and you have to know what you're, there's occupations for all kinds of personality types. So not everybody's built for it.
Yeah.
Like when you hear people say, just because you like coffee, don't open a coffee shop, right? Like you can like things. And if you're not business minded to get yourself to that place, knowing your skill set, if it's not something you can really like hone in on, then you might need to pivot,
And I think that's a great point is that's that self-awareness. Like what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What kind of life do I want to live? Am I willing to put the work in? Am I willing to take those risks?
Yeah.
Because I think it goes back to like, I want this, but I'm not willing to do all this.
Yep.
And I had a call with somebody maybe 2 months ago, and he was like, I feel stuck. He was looking at maybe potentially going to real estate or staying in the fitness industry. He's like, I just don't know if I should be like, end my one more day, like just one more. I was like, well, you've been going out for, you've been going for 8 years. Like, I think you're past that one more day concept. Like that's important in the first year. So like one more day, keep pushing. But like there is a moment where you have to ask yourself honestly, like, okay, will this vehicle get me to where I want to go?
Yep.
Like authentic, like 100% authentic with yourself. Like, will it get me there? And then the most important question is, am I willing to do that work?
Yep.
And if you're not, it's okay. It's not that you're a loser. It's not anything.
Yeah.
It's just like you need to now find what vehicle you are willing to put the work in for. And it may mean a slightly different life.
Yeah.
Like you can't have a six pack if you're not willing to go to the gym. Like, I'm sorry. Like you can get one of those like vibrating pad things. Ain't gonna work. But it's like you got to put the work in, and you got to know what type of work actually brings you fulfillment and happiness. And it's a really important thing that I think people, they look at one aspect, but they don't really do the research. And that's one thing about our mutual friend, Matt Foster, I've always appreciated. He's always willing to taste things to figure out if it's really what he wants to do.
Yep.
Now, there's one thing that's always been very attractive from what he's done in his career is like, he's willing to go do an internship for free or minimal amount of money just to find out whether he wants to invest the rest of his time into that. And I think there's a lot of people that are like, they just go all in and they're like, I don't even know if the water's hot, cold, whatever. Yeah. They're just all the way in.
Yeah. And then they're too far in to back out.
Yeah.
And then you get in that stuck position because really, I think deep down when you've settled and you've really accepted less than, but you're afraid to go for it.
Yeah.
So I just think like, you really need to be so self-reflective. And I think that's what entrepreneurship really is about. And sometimes it's darn scary because you think, I kind of view it like a highlight reel too. And then you're like, dang, that's not a great character trait, but it's actually like acknowledging it and then working on to fix it, because it's not all pretty all the time. It's not all pretty a vast majority of the time when you're really getting going, especially, right?
We just don't show it on Instagram.
You just don't show it.
We're just too straight. Like, I don't have time to pull out a phone.
Are you kidding? Yeah, they're like, block.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know if you've listened to this podcast that's going around right now, but it's with Shia LaBeouf, the actor, and it's an incredible podcast. I don't want to ruin it, nor spend this podcast going into it. Yeah. I'm on my fourth time listening to it. That's how good it is.
Okay.
And he had a very bad decision that led him to supposedly, I don't know the whole details, so I don't want to put it out on a podcast, but that he hit a woman and it like just destroyed his career. Okay. And he goes through that, like, it was so ugly and he's trying to fight it. And he ended up getting into AA, and the guy's like, dude, just let it go. Like, just let it go. Like, stop trying to fight it. Like let it go. Yeah. And when he let it go, he actually was able to then start working on himself. But sometimes we like hold on, and it's like that thing that you're saying, you're in too deep, but you're like, well, I'm in too deep, so I'm just going to keep holding on.
Yeah.
And a lot of that triggers back. And this is specifically what they talk a lot about on the podcast is your ego.
Yeah.
And your ego will keep you in a place that you shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And, going back to the person that I proposed those two questions to, that was something that he was like, well, like, what if I if I leave fitness and everyone's gonna be like, oh, he failed at fitness. Yeah. like, no. Like, everybody's gonna be like, dude, you're killing it in real estate. Awesome. Like, that's an exciting new career. Like, a lot of times in the entrepreneurship world, it's so funny. Like, if I quit my job, everyone's like, hey, hell yeah, go get that money or whatever. Like, they're all excited for you. But if you close a business down, they're like, oh, he failed. And a lot of it's on ourselves that we put those connotations. But it's like, we allow our egos to hold us back, but it's like, what is it that you want in life? Go do that. Go chase fulfillment, happiness, like satisfaction. You know, for me, I tied my ego a lot around to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I needed to hustle. And I was like, I remember driving to work at like 9 o'clock at night just to post something on Instagram to be like, still grinding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I did not need to go here. Like, I could have already been home, taking a shower, relaxed, eating some food. But it was like, you got to like keep that ego up. And that was something like I told you about, like why I feel so much satisfaction with the podcast now is like, I'm just like, yo, this is me. Like today it's Friday. I'm gonna be off by 5 o'clock, be home by 5:15, hanging out with my dog. Like, you don't have to work these absurd amount of hours to be successful. And most importantly, be happy. Yeah. And you know, I don't want to be successful and be just bankrupt on happiness or fulfillment. Yeah. That's a really, really big deal, you know? And unfortunately, that's the parts that we don't always talk about. It's just hustle.
Or wealth, you know, like people hear wealth like it's a bad word, but like wealth isn't just dollars in the bank. Like, how is your health that you can't pay for, right? Like, how do you feel about yourself at the end of the day? I think it's a challenge too that we probably overly identify with our occupations, right? I struggle with that too. I mean, for a lot of years, my why was always plenty big enough because I was a single mom for a really, really long time, right? And so you're always on the go. And I would find myself, to your point, like getting credit for, well, you know, I did this and you know, I did that and you know, I did that, you know what I mean? And so you're like, wait a minute, but you don't get the extra credit for being a burnout mom, right? Like, it doesn't make you a better mom. And the truth is too, who are you trying to prove it to? Other people or yourself? Usually there's somewhere in you that feels a little bit insecure and you're trying to prove something. And it just projects itself in an outward way. Very much right? So. And so when you do that inward work, you're like, it's tough. I have to fix that.
Well, and there's nobody to be accountable or to hold you accountable but yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really where the discipline is. Yeah. And you know, I've been listening to a couple of different people's podcasts, and one of them talks a lot about selling yourself short and like half selling yourself. Yeah. And it's like when somebody tells you, oh, you need to do this, and you're like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. And like you already start selling yourself short. Like, I can't do that. Like, oh, you're gonna go run this half marathon. Like, nah, I can't do that. Like realistically, like you just don't want to. Yeah. Like we can all go, I really don't want to, but like I could probably, like, and same with you, we could probably get through it if we put the training in and put the effort. But it's like, we'll sell ourselves short on those things. And a half marathon is a whole different ballgame. But like when somebody's like, yo, you really gotta work on this, man. Like you're struggling here. Like your anger, your attitude, your this, your that, whatever it is, like you gotta work on it. And it's a scary place because the only person that's going to hold you accountable is yourself.
Well, to that point, I heard something really good on like people think that you're afraid to fail. But the truth is a lot of times you're afraid to win because if you win, then you realize this whole time you had it in you. Like, shoot, you can't unknow it. You know what I mean? It's like learning a new fact. Like you can't unknow the fact. So like, you know, the theory of like how high can you reach, and you can always reach higher, right? So once you know what you're really capable of, it's kind of scary because then you have to like really do some self-reflection, look around and be like, well, dang, I could have done that better. But the truth is it's never too late, right? I mean, the next decision you make is the next best decision, you know? And you could be mid-decision and fix it and change it, right? And so I feel like it's so easy in the world we live in today. I love social media from the perspective of I love knowing kind of what's going on. I love people sharing things. I love knowing different things about people. I don't love the immediate comparison that we only show sometimes all the highlights. People log in sometimes if they're not in a great state of mind. And it's like, they're always on vacation. I'm never on vacation, right? So it can be like kind of one of those tools that I feel like it's like any other tool that you just have to know yourself well enough to not fall into that rabbit hole, right? Like turning off the news, you know, it's tough. People are like, I need to be informed. I don't need to be that informed. You know what I mean? I
Not
figure
those topics too.
if it's big enough, somebody's going to tell me.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
So you have to really control that intake. Like going into next year, I feel like the people that are going to be really ultimately successful are the ones that really were able to control their mindset, which is really no different than before. But I just feel like now we really understand the importance of it on your health, on every other aspect. But if you do not control what's going in, it's going to be really challenging to control what's going out.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, you just dropped some great bombs there. I loved them. But it really is that. I think, when we have these slowdowns in your industry, these are great times to go, okay, what do I want to come out of this as?
Yeah.
Who do I want to become?
Yeah.
On the other side of this, like this version of myself I want to be, what do I need to do? And taking that self-inventory and going, okay, I got to work on this, got to work on that, whether it be health, whether it be just spiritual life, all these things. I think one of my early mentors told me that life is like a wheel, and you take out one of those spokes, your wheel's not going to roll so smooth.
Yeah.
Take out two, it's going to dun dun. Take out three, you're not rolling anywhere. And it's very much like you can't just be rich in finances, but then broke in spirituality, family, health, all these other areas, because you're just not going to roll well. And I know I can speak that for myself. Like, I had some very good years. And then it's like, I look back around, like I barely saw my family, did not touch church once, let alone barely said a prayer, other than prayers when I was like, Lord, please get me through this. I swear I'll go to church next week if you can get me through that. And it was like those stressful moments. But the reality is I was just trying to make money, just trying, like, this will solve everything. And I think it's knowing that balance and knowing what's really important to you in life. And, unfortunately, it was literally 3 years ago today, because today is my dad's anniversary of his passing. And it was 3 years ago that everything really hit me, like how precious life was. Like we all know how precious life is, but like when you especially lose a parent, it's like, holy crap, like this person that was a constant in my life since literally the moment I came out of my mom's womb is gone. And it made me appreciate my mom a whole lot more, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, and these people that I unfortunately had almost abandoned because I was entrepreneur Billy. I worked all the time. And that's not the life I want to live. I don't want my nieces and nephews to remember me for all the birthdays I missed or all the holidays I missed. I want them to remember me through the times that I came there and who I showed up as. And that was a huge learning lesson, I think, for especially younger entrepreneurs that maybe don't have a family and they feel like, well, I'm just a solo guy. It's like, no, dude, you still got a family. You got your parents, your siblings, cousins, all those people, your friends. Those are all important relationships still to cultivate. And what that does, that gives you that support network. So when you have challenging times, you don't feel like you're on a freaking island.
100%.
And I hear that from entrepreneurs all the time. Like, oh man, I feel so alone.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, like there's a lot of people around, but that goes back to like, are you willing to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
And I think that I saw from, you mentioned coaching, and it's like, it's funny, like I've had coaching in years past where I hired a coach and I was like, I'm going to tell him what I want him to hear.
Yeah.
And the reality is they know.
Yeah.
Like you aren't really hiding anything from anybody. Like they know, like numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And like they can see it in your business. Like you ain't where you saying you're at.
Yeah.
Oh, everything's good. And they're like,
I'm doing all the activities.
Everything's burning down behind you,
Yeah.
And it's funny because we're so afraid to open up, but it's like, if you're unwilling to open up, you're minimizing yourself from the greatest level of opportunity to grow from it.
Yeah.
Because somebody, whether it be yourself, myself, anybody around you, it's like, hey man, I'm really struggling with this. Like, I just don't do. And you're like, well, let me give you some advice. Or like, well, hey, when I dealt with that, and it's all of a sudden you're able to speed up the process, cut my learning curve down. But we're so afraid to be honest with ourselves or with people around us. And that's a really important part, especially about entrepreneurship or just chasing anything in general in life.
Yeah, 100%. Or if you're building out a team or whatever it is you're doing, if you're not willing to be vulnerable as a leader, then it's not allowing the people around you also to, like, our team, we talk about finances and budgeting, and we just, we'll do book clubs together and things that are like not just what is right in front of you. Yes, that we just did. And one of my employees brought me in her credit cards after and literally was like, okay, I don't know if this is too far, but here's what I have. Here's what I need to know. What should I do? Yeah. And I was like, freaking loved it because I thought that's the kind of vulnerability that we have to have, right? Because like when you're going home and you're stressed, whether it's financially or your marriage or whatever it is, like it shows through to all the other areas. But like, how powerful is that? Like, so I feel like just in general, my message is like, if we had more love and less judgment, right? Like you see somebody that's acting maybe in a way that isn't great. it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
You see somebody that's spending or going out too much or going whatever. There's something more there. And like, what if we all just sort of, without oversharing, depending on your level with that person and your trust level, but if we shared that and then healed together and healed from the things that have hurt us and use those experiences to help other people, I believe that's what we're here for, right? Not just to put more money in the bank for security, but to really do something else with it.
Yeah, I love that, and I think it really is important to just love on people and I'll give a shout out to my guy Gary out there. Is when I was going through my divorce, and I told him we sat here for 3 hours and just went through everything, and he shared a lot with me, and it was like he doesn't need to do that.
Yep.
Like we were long after the clock was over, so it wasn't like he was like, well, I got to, you're paying me to be here, so I'll talk to you. Yeah. But it was like, dude, I'm here for you, and that conversation has changed so much of how I show up for other people now.
Yes.
And it's funny how that one conversation can lead to the seed of me contributing to somebody else, and how that can cause a snowball when we just show up for one person, how they're going to show up to the next person, and pay it forward, and that one positive act can cause a chain reaction of positive stuff. And that's what's powerful about it.
Yeah. And that really is the point. I mean, we're blessed to have those experiences when you think about it. Like we feel like we're helping other people, but the selfishness is how it makes you feel. Yeah. Biggest loss I've ever had. I've had some struggles, but I lost a child when she was 14 months old. And it's a tough topic for me, right? And I shared it gradually over the years because I felt like for different points, it would be helpful to people in healing. And we were moving into our new office, and we were about to leave, and we realized the copy guy hadn't been there yet. We're like, oh, a copy maker would be a good thing. And he kind of shows up. He's clearly disheveled, just kind of not all there. And literally it ends with him telling us about the story of his granddaughter that had just passed, a very similar cancer to my daughter's. Then he lost his wife a year later. I have the chills, right? Oh, wow. Because then it just turned into this whole thing where now we know about this organization that he has that honors her. And he felt like he just had hope. And that somebody there he is, a copy guy. I could have been like, it's 4:55, but I just sensed there was something different. And I didn't know what it was, but I just felt like, I think he just needs somebody to kind of talk to. And, it just was this purest moment. And there were so many similarities. His daughter's name is my assistant's daughter's name. And there's just all these little parallels that you were just like, okay, this is not a coincidence, but what if I had been in a rushed state of mind and I just hadn't taken the moment? And I'm not saying that I get up every day and I'm changing people's lives, right? But I hope to in little, increments along the way, which requires me to be aware of what my goal is to bring to the table every day, right? And so just things like that. And then just also the power of hope that, when you have loss, people say it gets easier. I think you learn to cope with it different. That's what I believe, right? And I also have to believe that there's something better. I have no choice. When people are like, how did you get through whatever this struggle was? I have to believe it's not wasted. Yeah. I'm not saying God caused it, but I do have to believe that it's not wasted. So I get up every day with the intention of, okay, I'm going to use that, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes I say, Lord, I don't know what you're preparing me for, but it's got to be something big.
Must be fantastic. That was a challenge. I can't wait to get there. Yeah.
And that is the reality. It's like you have to flip it into a way that you can compartmentalize and be like, okay, it's all good. Because otherwise there are times where you just feel like you're getting punched left and right. And you're like, when can I get a freaking break? Yeah. But the reality is it is setting you up. It's preparing you for that. And on that Shia LaBeouf podcast, they said rock bottom is not your lowest point. It's the point that you change. And it's okay to feel like you're at your bottom, but are you willing to change? Because that's where rock bottom is, where it's so bad that you're like, all right, I gotta shift this. Yep. And I remember for me, I was 23 was before we had started Go Fresh. Before I'd even gotten into fitness. And I remember one day I was driving and I was like skinny fat. And I was like a skinny dude with a pregnant belly. Yeah. And I was like, this ain't right. I look funny. I feel like crap. Yeah. And I literally just remember waking up for a week straight, barely opened my eyes. I had little to no motivation, no excitement. I'm drinking a 4-pack of Red Bull. And I was like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember this day driving over the Altamont, and I was like, I got to figure something out. And that's when I had hired my first coach and got into nutrition, and it's completely changed my life now 11 years later.
Yeah.
Is like, I'm a whole new human being, but it was like that breaking point of like, okay, I'm sick and tired of literally being sick and tired.
Yeah.
I got to figure this out. And we have those little breaking moments, and I might have another breaking moment where I'm like, okay, this ain't it. And there's those little moments, but you have to acknowledge it and then go take action on it. And it's funny because like money is a hard one to make, right? Don't get me wrong. But some of the hardest are like the way we think.
Yeah. Oh,
that negativity,
harder.
man, that negativity is just brewing in there. And it is freaking hard to get that out of there. And I admit openly, like I had a really bad anger problem. Like I grew up as an athlete. I would threaten to kill people on the court. Like I wouldn't even know what came out of my mouth. I'm like, hey, I'm super sorry about that.
Didn't really mean it.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, you just told me 2 seconds ago you were going to kill me. And I just lose it. And that continued on into my business. And, it was about a year and a half ago that I was like, okay, this is a freaking problem. I'm calling like 1-800 customer service and just cussing them out. I'm like, this woman didn't even deserve, like, what did she do? She just told me no. And because I didn't get my way, I would scream. And that, I like to still say that I still have an anger problem because it's going to live with me forever. And if I don't keep it check, it will come back. But I had to put in freaking work. Every time I got mad, I'd journal. I'd be like, why? Why did I feel this way? What was my triggers? And it, like, my ex-wife will tell you, she's like, you are a whole new human being. Like even the guys on the team will tell you like, Billy from the beginning to Billy now, like whole different Billy. But it's like, that was not comfortable. And there was moments that I would snap and I'd be like, but I'm trying. Like, it's okay for me to be mad, but I'm trying. And then with like, it's a constant struggle and you have to work and work and work. And before it gets better, it gets harder.
Yeah.
And like, once you acknowledge it, it gets way freaking harder. Because now you put it out there. And that's why I love like public, proclaiming something publicly. Like, I'm going to do this. Because now you've committed. And then like, now we can delete posts. But like, I'm like, leave that bad boy out there, like proclaim that and put that out there. Put yourself out there because that's where we sell ourselves short too, is like sometimes we're unwilling to put it out there. And that's why I acknowledge it. Like, dude, if I become an asshole again and I start screaming at people, like everybody can reference back to episode 67 when I said, I fixed it. And they're like, no, you didn't, Billy. And like, I don't mind talking about it. I don't mind because some people might be like, oh, Billy is an angry person. I'm like, no, like I'm a pretty happy person, but there's those moments I can snap. And I'm okay with talking about it because maybe somebody else out there, like you were saying, like maybe they're dealing with that. And if I can shed just a little bit of light on what I went through, maybe I can give them the positive light that they're like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can find my North Star.
Like that's so like brutally honest. That's what I'm talking about. Like the brutal honesty. Like I know for myself, like I grew up with a single dad, a mom that did her best with what we had, but had a lot of different issues. And I never saw her past the age of 13. Oh, wow. And she passed away 5 years ago, never having met my kids, never having had a relationship, right? And so when you reflect and you get in your 30s and you've had a divorce and you're like, oh, that's because I'm seeking some sort of like, I feel incomplete. I feel not worthy. You know what I mean? You're seeking feeling that way. It just looks different. So whether it looks like, low self-esteem or anger or overdoing this or perfectionism. I had that too, because maybe if I'm good enough, right, somebody's going to love me. And I mean, that to your point, like is maybe you get better because you get better skills at coping with it, but it still would be your default emotion. Right. And so like, if you know your default emotion, then you have to have some sort of something you're doing that's like, oh, no, wait a minute. This is about to go on the crazy train. This is not in reality, but it just looks a little bit different. And if we all just shared a little bit more with each other about that, because to your point, they all know. They're like, oh, I hope they don't mess up Billy's order. He's going to lose his, you know what I mean?
Literally,
like they all know. And so all you acknowledging does is it tells them it's okay for them to acknowledge too.
And it's okay to be not perfect.
I
don't want to call it broken because that has a wrong connotation to it too.
It really does.
It's just, you're not perfect and that's okay. Like, to be honest, I don't want to freaking be perfect.
The
perfect
pressure.
It's kind of seems
Can
boring
you imagine?
Too. To be perfect, the pressure. It really is very unfortunate that we chase that. And it's like, I always love that Kobe Bryant speech where he talks about it's not the destination, it's the journey that really it's all about. And I vividly remember hearing that and being like, I had to fall in love with the journey. And it's just appreciating every day. Like literally, like for me, for entrepreneurship, like to be able to have not worked today, and I obviously came back to do this, but like to have taken the morning off to go see my mom and go do that, like that's all that matters to me in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Like the money, that's fun. But it's like being able to find those moments, and that's what brings me satisfaction. And so it's like, once I stopped chasing the money, like, which honestly, nobody was around me because of the money. It was like, oh wow, Billy's got a ton of money that he's not going to give to me, but like, like nobody cares. Like they're going to remember those memories. They're going to remember who you were and how you contributed. Like you mentioned, the gentleman that came in your office and you were just there. You were present for him. And if you weren't present, like many of us, we're on our phone scrolling, and you'll miss those opportunities to impact people's lives. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that about the present side when you were talking about that, because I'm like,
it's so perfect. Like that's exactly. And if you're so busy and preoccupied, there's all of those moments around us and we just miss them. And we even try to, like, even from the customer service aspect, right? Like to the team, somebody's rude to you on the phone or they're kind of overreacting to a topic. It really isn't about you or the topic. And 99% of the time, don't you know, they call or text you back apologizing because they didn't really mean it about the topic, right? Because you delivered it with kindness and care. It doesn't always mean good news, but it is the correct news and it's not always well received. But maybe they have something else going on. And so when you don't react back to them negatively, it causes them to go, oh, I don't know if I really meant to do that, and we've all had moments on both sides of it. But then to not take it personal, and it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It just means sometimes, the reaction doesn't always match up the news. Right. And so you just have like a different perspective, like, okay, there just must be something else going on. But I'm not gonna combat back to that because then that just is this vicious.
It makes it worse. But that's that emotional intelligence that I think a lot of people struggle with. And I know Gary Vee talks a lot about emotional intelligence and there's another one, empathy. And it's like those types of things, being able to go like you're probably dealing with something like, I don't even know what you're dealing with. But like, it's all good. Like, I'm just gonna forgive you. It's like you said, it's not a personal attack on me. It is what it is. Like I'm not gonna let this energy ruin my day either. Too. No, that's to perfectly greedy.
Selfish.
I'm very protective of that. And that's what I've talked with our team too. And this was always something that one of my first bosses said. He's like, no matter what's going on outside, there's a door out there, and you can check your bag right outside there. Like just know that. And he's like, if you're having a great day, bring all of that in and just pour it on to everybody. If you're having a bad day, leave it at the door and come in and be receptive of other people's good. Because there's somebody that's having a good day and somebody that's having a bad day, but together you can both have a good day. If you're willing to contribute and you're willing to receive. Because that's sometimes the hard part. When you're having a hard day, you don't want to hear nothing. You just want to wallow in your crap, right? We've all had those days where you're just frustrated and you're not motivated and you're like, you know what? I'm sitting on my freaking couch today and I'm not doing nothing. But the reality is like there's somebody out there that if you were just with that can love on you and support you and give you a positive energy. Like my mom's my go-to. Like love my mom to death. Shout out mom. Her energy, and like I've always said that my dad taught me how to work. My mom taught me how to believe in myself. Like my mom was like, cool, you want to do that? Like I did bowling, bagpipes, swimming, baseball, basketball. Like you name a sport, I freaking did it. Because my mom's like, sure, let's go see if you can do it. And like when I call my mom, it's just like whatever's going on, she just flips it. And to be greedy, I go to my mom regularly for that. And my middle sister, probably the same thing. I can relate to her very much. Like my mom, it's like, I can be having a tough time and I just go to them and they're like, it's good. Like you're on the right path. Like, and they just make you feel okay about it. Because there is a lot of shame and failure or struggling.
There is.
Whether it be, failing in business. I still remember I lost my first business and was my parents' money that went down the drain in that one. And that was like the hardest freaking time calling my parents. And my dad just was like, it's good. It's good. Like, you're okay? Are you breathing? It's like, yeah. He's like, all right, then it's good. Okay. He's like, the only time we got to worry is if you're not breathing. And I was like, all right, that's a good perspective on it. But like, that really is it. Like, we're always judging what we don't have, but it's like, dude, we live here in the United States. Geez, did we not win the lotto with that one? We're breathing. Like, we're not living under a bridge. Like, this is a good situation. And you have to like sometimes there'll be moments I'll be stressed out and be like, man, I'm not where I want to be. And then I walk outside. I'm like, I'm outside my house.
First of all,
I'm about to get in my car. I've got food in my stomach and in my bag here. Like I got a laptop. I am rich comparison to so many other people. And just I'm not even talking about like wealth, but I am rich in just life. And like, I don't have any crazy diseases. I have all my limbs. Like, it's like my family's alive and healthy. It's like, holy crap.
And
like
options and freedom of choice and all expression.
I mean, the list goes on, right? Freedom of expression. Like, holy crap. Like, we get that. Like, geez. And it's just like you said on gratitude. Like, if we just take the time to practice gratitude, and I'll admit, I'm the first one to say the first week of me doing gratitude when I started, I remember the first day and I was like, I am happy for my wife. And I was like, happy for my mom.
Yeah. What other relatives?
Yeah. Like, and I'm like, just going down the list of like my dog, my cat. And then it's like day 2 and you're like, so I can't do the same people. Like, okay. And I remember I think it was the second day and I was like, I started to get teary-eyed. I was like, am I really not grateful for 5 things today?
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's my problem.
And but it's a muscle that we have to work, and we get stronger and we get better at acknowledging and being present to like what's good in our life. And then like you were saying, like that list, like you went into places that I didn't even think about, but and now I'm going to think about it thanks to you exposing me to it. But it's like, man, when we practice and we just put the work in, stay consistent, it takes time, like you were saying. We can create amazing things in life through gratitude, through just perspective on life. And that was one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on here. Because every call that I've had with you, it's just, and even our first sit down, it was like, I felt like I knew you for so long.
I
we're just like,
what are we going to talk about next?
Plus, I mean, we had Matt Foster there, the three of us just geeking out, you know? And so it's just like, I knew I had to have you on because there are, unfortunately, so many people. Like I said, I wanted to bring more light to the world because there's enough negativity out there. There's enough fights and crap and nonsense on social media. And I've always put this on friends of mine that are like, I'm going to delete my Instagram or my social media because it's just crap. And I was like, have you ever thought about putting more good out than the crap that you see? And they're like, huh.
Yeah.
And like, I'll flip it on them. And I've had a few of my friends start actually putting out a lot of content because they're like, you know what? I'm going to take that challenge. I'm going to put out something positive every day, whether it be a quote, whether it be a video, whatever it is. I'm just going to put something good out into the earth every day because we have way more negativity than we do positive. And we need to balance that out and get some more positivity out there.
100%. And think about all those people that are out there really trying to be positive. Probably 99% of them chose that approach because they've had so much adversity. It's very likely, right? I mean, most great stories, rag stories, all those stories all come with some sort of adversity. And then they chose to have a different approach. So like, let's reward those people. Let's give those people more likes than the, update on a famous person's relationship status. Okay. I'm just saying, like, let's choose what we're putting our energy into and the things that we remember, like pick up a book instead of entertainment sometimes, like really make your mind a place that you really protect. And it just changes everything.
I think the word you use, protect, is very important because I think sometimes we want to like wrong people around us. Like, I got to keep that negativity away. And I understand, I feel that. But are you like, we also have to intake good so I can also be there when somebody is having a tough time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where in my early days, especially when you're network marketing, they're always anti anybody that's not in network marketing. Like, you're a bum if you're not willing to sign up for my network marketing company. And I remember cutting friends out of my life, and they weren't bad people. They just didn't sign up. And I'm like, that's kind of a messed up thing for me to do, just to cut somebody off because they didn't sign up with me. But it was like, some of them did have negative things going on. And I was like, I'll get you out of my life. Your drugs, your drinking, whatever. And it was like, I actually need to read more so I can show up for those people, because those are people I care about. Those are people I love. Just because you had a bad day doesn't mean I got to cut you out of my life. Like, I'm not that protective. But like, I want to make sure my armor is thick with the books and the knowledge that I intake so that when I am with my family or with a friend that is struggling, I can actually be there and not fear like, what's this going to do to me, but like be there present for them. And that's what gratitude is, for sure, hands down, been able to really do for me. That simple practice.
And sometimes you do need a buffer. Like we've all had those friends or life situations where you're like, I love you right now for a minute from afar. Maybe because of your situation, or maybe because I'm so fragile that I'm just having a hard time. But that's like a legitimate friendship too, where you could just say that, right? Or and just know that, okay, there's going to be a time where maybe we reconnect, and I'm not being your friend, but maybe if you're not in a good mindset and they're a negative person, you need to hang out with them once a month, not every Friday.
Well, Jeff Olson always talked about that. He's like, some friends that you're spending 5 minutes with, you need to spend 5 hours.
Exactly.
Some people you're spending 5 days with, you need to cut down to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean you got to cut them out.
Yeah.
But you do have to monitor those.
Yeah.
But that's why we intake good information. That's why we hang around good people, so that when one of our friends does, stray off the path of their life, that we can help them back on. Because there have been plenty of friends that have shown up for me in tough times in business, tough times in life, whether it be with my father, my divorce, anything in life. I've had different people show up, and I'll vividly remember one conversation that I had early on in my career, which was when we first were opening GoFresh, and I had no idea what I was doing in food. And literally no idea. I thought I'd rented a restaurant, so I should just be able to open. And I remember just going through hell, and I was running out of money, and Brad Morad from Skewers sat down with me, and we must have been 4 hours with me, and just was like, it's good. Like, calm down. First and foremost, health department is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first lesson you'll learn. And then just like guiding me through it. And at the end, I was ready to pull my checkbook out and be like, what do I owe you? And he was like, look, man, like somebody was there for me when I first started and gave me this lesson. He's like, well, I got one ask. You just pay it forward to somebody else when they're struggling. Yeah. And it's like, he could have been like, Billy, get the hell out of here, man. Like, you rookie, like, you shouldn't have gotten into my game, but he was there to support and to contribute. And he's never asked for anything other than a handshake, you know what I mean? Like, he is just nothing but been supportive of me the whole time. And it was like, he didn't really know me. Yeah. I knew somebody that knew him, was like, you should talk to Brad. And I was like, I would love to. I don't know him, and it like, I've told that story 10 times over at least. And I share that with other people, because I hope that if you had somebody share with you, just remember that, pay it forward. If they gave that to you for free, don't go try to monetize that. Go out and give that out for free, because there is somebody out there that really needs that support, needs that love, needs that whatever it is. And I have plenty of friends that have called me out on it and been like, hey, dude, you good? Like, you don't sound like something's going on. Yeah. And I think in the average world, people are scared to do that.
Oh, they are. They don't really mean, how are you?
Yeah.
They mean like, oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm just trying to get some coffee.
It's a formality, yeah.
Yeah, just a nicety. No, good Lord. Or some people, they don't even ask, right? They just turn the other way. They're like, oh no, he's going to give me a long-winded story of, So I don't know what happened to like just the etiquette and the level that we care. You travel and stuff. Even if you just go to other places in the United States, like some, areas are so much like slower paced, kind, opening doors. No, how are you? Yeah. And you're like, okay, it's a little bit slow for my mind, but it's kind of good. Yeah. And you're like, oh, people really do still care like that. It's like refreshing, right? Like, don't you want somebody to like interact with you and be like, that was kind of nice. That was a little light. I feel, a little better after that encounter,
Even when I walk the neighborhood in the morning, because I walk my dog every morning. Yeah. And there's neighbors I know that will wave at me. And I know there's other ones that like don't even acknowledge, don't even look. They'll look down when they see you coming. Yeah. And it's like, when I wave at those people and they wave back at me, I'm like, I feel good. That's like, right. They acknowledged me, like, good morning, how you doing? And like, it's those simple little things can change the way people are in a moment. We had an employee back at our Turlock GoFresh years ago, and this lady came in and just like, it was 7:00 in the morning. Her baby had just thrown up on her. And so she'd like just wiped down, walked into GoFresh. She's got her baby on her again, and her baby's just screaming, and she was a raging B word. Yeah. And like, my employee called me and was like, yo, dude, I just got cussed out by this lady. And I happened to be there that afternoon, and the lady came back and was like literally in tears. And she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, can I find out who the employee was this morning? Because like, I just came in here like a holy terror, and I like chewed him out, and I was complaining about everything. And she's like, he was so nice that I got back in the car and I just felt horrible. Like, what did I just do to this kid? I mean, he was like 18 years old, and he was a super sweetheart, but it was like, what did I just do to this kid? Like, my baby just threw up on me. Yeah, I'm having a tough morning, but like, he didn't deserve that. Yeah. Like, he didn't throw up on me. Like, why am I putting it onto him? And she came back and apologized. And he was so touched by that when he found out. He was like, she didn't need to do that. Like, I was good with it. But it's like him just not going back to where you said, don't react back to them. Yeah. He just responded positive. He's like, hey, have a great day. I hope it gets better. And she was like, that just changed the whole day for me. Yeah. And so even in those tough moments, it's like still being positive, still being like, you can be the light in everybody else's darkness. And
you sure can.
And that's the power that we all have. Every day we can bring more to the table than we take from it.
Yep. 100% agree.
The one story I'll talk about myself for a second is that was like a moment that really hit me on that. Like, we can either contribute or take from our environment. Was when I mentioned I lost my first business, and I thought I was a bum, and so I moved to Modesto. Not because I thought I was a bum and like this is a good place to live as a bum, but I was working in an Out Burger and was really struggling. And I remember one night just being out on the patio sweeping, and there was this homeless guy complaining to me about Modesto, how horrible it was. Yeah, crap everywhere. It's meth desto, all this stuff. And he throws his burger trash on the ground, and I just walked away. And there was something like I swear God was speaking to me that night, and it was like, like, you can either contribute or you can be a part of the problem. Yeah. Or you can either be the solution or the contribute. And it was like this moment where I felt like I had nothing going. Nobody would ever give me a job again. And like, this was the best. And I remember that night I was like, back to reading. And I picked this book back up, The Slight Edge, for all of you guys.
So good.
And it's the simplest habits. Yep. I realized I got to start back at the beginning.
Yep.
It is brick by brick, day by day, those simple little actions. Like, I always love the bagger boy story. Like, do I put the can on top of the bread on top of the can? And that is the direct proportion of the pay that you'll receive is the problem that you solve. Yeah. And it was like, all right, I got a big problem in my life. I got to solve this thing. Yeah. And I had to get back into work. But it was about that. I can either take or I can contribute to what's happening. And when I had that shift, I was like, I'm not going to live my life anymore about being a loser. I got every day I can come out and give energy. Yeah. Like, I can give positivity. I can contribute with my time and just love of other people. And that shifted everything for me. And like, the next day I quit my job, ended up filing my LLC that same day. I got a tattoo, so I couldn't go back to In-N-Out. I was like, I'm burning all the bridges, Yeah. But it's like, when you acknowledge, you got to go take action. Like, I talked about that rock bottom. Rock bottom is really when you actually take action to solve it. So.
Well, and I think the other thing to remember, I mean, whether you're a young person, I know it's hard for adults and teens, is the seasonality of emotions. Oh. And when you're in that season, it feels like that season is never going to end. Usually those are those negative ones. But I think it's also, without minimizing the positive ones, just being mindful that, like, the next struggle is around the corner. Like, don't minimize the good right now, but just use it to also prepare yourself for the next thing that's coming. Yeah. But, I mean, particularly our young people, everything just seems so like indefinite, whether it's a breakup, a grade, a this or that. And I feel like sometimes, us as parents, we can kind of minimize that. But you remember what that's like when you're a young person, and it just feels like this season is just never going to end. So I think it's really important to be vulnerable also at home with our kids and our families, right? It's like, no, I don't always have it together. This is going to pass as well, just like other, without doing the comparison thing of your struggle. Yeah. Oh, really? You're tired? Let me tell you how tired I am. I've done it, but you're just like acknowledging somebody's emotion and then just reminding them that it's not like that forever. Yeah. Nothing is like anything forever, and it can't be. Yeah. And it's not supposed to be.
I love that. Mm-hmm. I love the seasons. That is a great way to wrap up this episode, because I think that is the perfect note to leave people with. In this time of the economy and the world, it's just a season. Yeah. And we're going to get back to the good times, because in 2008, it seemed like that was a very hard time that would never end. And then we went through one of the best economic times of our lives, one of the best times of our lives, period. Yep. And it's going to come back, and it's going to be even better.
Yeah. And who are you going to be when it comes back?
Yes. And how is this going to shape you to be that person you need to be, the person that you were meant to be? So, well, before we wrap up, I always like to make sure that we plug you and a little bit about you guys. So how can somebody connect with you, whether they just wanted to literally connect with you, because we need more people in this area connecting with each other and supporting, and especially for leaders like yourself. So how can somebody connect with you personally, as well as learn more about your company?
Yeah, for sure. So Instagram and Facebook, Sondra Yates, Modesto, California. And you can email me, IM me, message me. My cell phone's on everything because I'm in sales, right? So you can find me anyway. And even if it's just, hey, you said this thing and it was really positive, I would love to just even hear that, right? Yeah. We just really, really care hard for people and our community and the services we offer, just all of it. So I just feel really blessed that you had me on today.
Thank you so much.
And what a great job you do.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Hey, I just sit in front of the mic and I talk a lot, so it works out.
It's a good gig.
People like us need to be in front of a mic talking a lot. Sometimes it's meant the place for us to be. Yeah. So we'll include all of her contact information in the show notes, not the phone number and stuff, but at least her Instagram handles, as well as her website. So if you want to connect with her about mortgages, or just connecting with her about the topics that she talked about today, there's a lot of powerful topics. Can I plug the thing that I know you're probably going to be launching?
Sure.
Okay. And she's going to be launching a really hot podcast. So you got to make sure you check out for her podcast, because hopefully by the time this episode launches, her podcast will have its first episode out. So make sure you check that out as well, because everything you got today is going to be all on there. And that is going to be really exciting. I can't wait for that.
Thank you.
So with that, guys, if you got anything from this episode, which I absolutely know you did with what we covered today, make sure you screenshot and share it with everybody. And that my one ask, I don't sell anything on this podcast. I don't push any of my products, my services. I literally don't. I mean, I guess Level Up is the same name as my company. So I guess I'm kind of promoting it. But I ask that you guys just leave us a review. This is what's going to help us get higher in the rankings, so that more people can find out about us and they can hear this information that you're hearing today. So those are my two asks. Share it and also rate and review us. We really, really, really appreciate that. But with that, thank you, Sondra, again for hopping on. We can't wait to see you guys back here for the next episode of the Level Up Your Life podcast.